you have to believe that you can do something that nobody else has done. And somehow that concept has to become reality.
Somebody's got to make the play to stop this drive. That last run, in fact, again, they push the foul for the first. And the pass is picked off. It's picked off by David Harris, who gets away from Brady. What a turn of events. Now being chased down by Cropper at the 10-yard line. Suddenly, the Jets defense responds when it looks like the Patriots were ready to drive it right down the field. 3rd and 7, Matt Moore. Has time.
You're listening to No Fly Zone Radio with Victor Green.
Welcome to the No Fly Zone Radio Show, all the way from across the pond. Here are your hosts, Biff Sweeney and Richard Tinley.
Welcome to No Fly Zone Radio. I'm your host, Biff Sweeney. I'm joined here by my good friend and draft tech analyst, Richard Tinley. How's it going, Rich?
Oh, good, Ian. Looking forward to getting in to discuss a few of the free agent signings we're after having a week or two.
Exactly, yeah. I've seen an awful lot of podcasts and radio shows and all that, tracking everything throughout free agency in the last 2 weeks. And for me, I thought we'd give it a couple of weeks, let the whole process, Jets get through the process and see who comes in and who goes. So we'll start off with how things went. Now, first of all, the Jets, the media actually were saying the Jets were going to go and splash big time and bring in this, that, and the other name. And they were giving lists of names, and Jets fans were going bananas for all these names. And then when they all started flying off the board, especially when they started flying up north to New England for big, huge contracts, Jets fans started panicking, and basically it was Armageddon. And the same every free agency with Jets fans. I don't know what it is, but like the last couple of years, I've noticed it with Joe Douglas. He's doing it his way, and it's different. And the Jets have always went after the big splash, and the last couple of years they didn't. And I know it's a fresh way of going about it, but I don't think Jets fans are used to it. They're going to have to get used to it because the way Joe Douglas is tackling free agency, it's the right way. Instead of bringing in, let's say Bell, the running back Bell for a big huge number, and he doesn't work out. So they're bringing in players that are going to suit the system, suit what Salah is going to do, suit what LaFleur is going to do on his offense. They're bringing in hungry guys. So, what's your thoughts so far, Rich?
Overall, you can't fault what he's done. I think where fans get caught up in it, and we all do it. We look at the list of free agencies and we automatically take our pick, and we want the best of everybody at every position. We're struggling at, for me, Joe Tooney was probably the top guy on my board. But I think what fans sort of fail to sort of remember a lot of the time is it's not really like fantasy football. You can pick the player you want, but in fantasy football, he automatically ends up in your team. And free agency, he can tell you to sling your hook and he wants to go elsewhere. So it takes two to tango. So as much as you might want the guy and you then blame the team for it, you can't really, because he may never want to come here in the first place. Just because you've seen him on the list doesn't mean he wants to play here. In terms of what they've done so far, I'm a little bit surprised, I suppose, in some ways. Other ways, I'm not. I'm surprised that maybe some of the areas they put the emphasis on. I was surprised with the first free agent signing, the linebacker.
Jared Davis from Detroit.
Yeah, I didn't think there was going to be a big market for a guy like him. So for him to be one of the first guys signed was a little bit of a surprise. then I think the other Davis signing coming in at wide receiver was really good. You could see the natural fit there from like the body type of the guy he is. He's playing on a team where it's a very run-based orientated offense, which means he's going to need to block a lot. So I would say that's probably a prerequisite requirement now in this new offense for the Jets, is they're going to probably want to get a run game going a little bit similar to San Francisco, have solid guys on the outside who can catch balls and block in the run game. And I think Davis sort of ticks the box there. Other places, like I like the LaMarcus Joyner signing even if it's only a depth signing, but I like guys like that. He's a guy that can create turnovers, and we don't really have a lot of them at the minute. So the more we have, the better. I suppose the other real big one was we finally nabbed ourselves a pass rusher. Yeah, like I like the guy as a player and I like his potential. Unfortunately, we paid him like he's already delivering double-digit sacks for me. Like he's had one sort of full season as a starter. I haven't really seen much of him in terms of watching full games, of more sort of snippets and stuff like that. And he has got a few nice moves to the repertoire. But if we're playing a 4-3, he fits lovely in that as well. I think 11 to 12 million a year was the sort of ballpark range for me. So I did think we paid a little bit over the odds and I think that's probably going to increase the pressure because automatically, Ian, you're paying a guy $15 million. You probably want 12 sacks off him next year, or else you're going to start to wonder, can he do it? And at 11 million, you probably give him that 8 to 9 sack range to give him that little bit of time where, you don't want to be sort of paying a guy where you expect them to be. You wanted to sort of pay a guy where he's actually at and hope that then when he moves on, that you're actually the one getting the bargain out of it. And while it was a good sign, and I don't think it sort of fit that criteria for me. But again,
the only thing I can say about that, Rich, is when it comes to edge rushers in free agency, you have to pay the top dollar to get a top guy. So I think that's why it ended up that they had to pay that money.
Well, I was basing my comments off the Yannick Ngakoue deal. Yannick Ngakoue got less for, and he's almost double the amount of sacks, in the same sort of career span, so he got a 2-year deal, I think, for about 13 million. So if I'm valuing it off him, we definitely overpaid. The only other thing as well, Ian, from pass rushers, it's all about this pressure stuff, right? I get that it can have an effect on the play and the whole works, but it's so overblown and oversold to be something that means a player can sack a quarterback. It's a pressure for me, Ian, is if you're getting an offense, the end zone for a pass rusher is sacking the quarterback. A pressure is getting into the red zone. And it's also well and good if you get lots of trips into the red zone, but you still want a guy to, smash it into the end zone. So again, he's done a lot of red zone work, but we're paying him like he's great at pushing it in the end zone. And again, that he has the ability to improve, don't get me wrong, but I think automatically for me, if he was probably the pressure guy straight away, $15 million, you don't just give that away. He's going to have to perform like he's $15 million,
Yeah, the other thing is, like you said about Yannick Ngakoue, he mightn't have even wanted to come to the Jets. The Jets could have made him an offer, and he probably refused it. He wanted to probably go to where he ended up with the Raiders. See, that's the other side of it, and like that, the Jets have the number 2 overall pick for a reason, and have a big time lack of depth at a lot of positions. So you're going to have to pay top dollar for any sort of an edge presence.
Oh, I get that as well. And we're going to judge, did we pay too much? And for me, we did based on what he's done for 1 year. Again, I do sort of think he's the potential to improve greatly over his time here and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's not really any honeymoon period for him coming in at $15 million a year. Not really. You have to look at it and think, well, you're demanding double-digit sacks straight away. Now, I think the little addition of Vinny Curry there might maybe playing opposite, and I suppose maybe on third down scenarios and stuff like that, adding a bit more brawn. And then to the guy we added as well, the former first-round pick onto the D line, I think, to play inside with Quinnell Williams. It'll be another good addition. Like the kind of that was probably the surprise, I suppose, in a way, is that they built the D line in free agency rather than the O line, if you know what I mean. I thought that might have been more higher up the list of needs. I thought the Jets had a lot of young guys there that still had potential to grow into roles. Now, yeah, we still didn't have a pass rusher. I'm not saying that. I just mean as in like I thought there would have been a bit more emphasis put into maybe solving maybe the center or one of the guard positions in free agency for the O line. But again, yeah, like you said, it takes two to tango, and I think exactly. I did read reports that he did put an offer in for Joe Thuney, but he turned them down. And if he doesn't want to play, he doesn't want to play. There's not really a lot you can do, you know. But overall, as I said, like from what we've got so far, even going back maybe to probably one of the more recent signings, Tevin Coleman, another nice little addition on offense there. Somebody who you know what you're going to get with. Again, I suppose if anywhere I was a little bit disappointed, apart from O-line, was maybe at the tight end position. Like, I know, yeah, the two big guys went off to New England, and, you know, like, very good moves for New England, let's be honest about it. You can see exactly what they're trying to build there. Two tight ends like that are going to be hard for any team to sort of cover. But, yeah, I don't know. I think I would have liked to have maybe seen even like somebody like, I don't know, your man Kyle Rudolph. I think he signed to the Giants for $6 million a year average for 2 years. Now, I know he's a bit of an older guy, but I'm kind of looking at the premise as if we're getting a young rookie quarterback in. I'd like to have a sort of a good safety blanket at tight end, or a really good fullback to really help with the run game or take the pressure off when needed. And I think those two parts are probably lacking. And I do think we could have probably got something in better than what we got, even just judging by what's still left on the free agency board there at one or two of those positions. So I get, yeah, we've still got a couple of weeks to go before the draft, and things can change. We can still sign, like, cornerback could be another position. There's still a few good guys left out there on the cornerback market that could come in. But, like, no, but, like, you know, like, I think finding one outside corner this off season was like a bare minimum. Like, realistically, we could have been looking for two. So I think you can nearly put a shoe in that if we take a quarterback second overall, we're probably more than likely taking a cornerback or a guard next. Those two seem to be the most glaring needs after sort of free agency has settled a bit, you know. And then I think as well, like, maybe there's another question mark on defenses playing the outside linebacker positions, like who we got. Are they suitable to play those roles? Do we maybe need somebody else? Like, maybe we could be looking at a linebacker, because usually a lot of those guys that do play in the 4-3 on the outside linebacker type of positions, they seem to fall a lot in the draft in terms of you get good value in the sort of mid-second round, early third round area.
They're not.
So I wouldn't be surprised for the Jets to make. They're not. But there's not as many teams using 4-3, so for that reason, that they're seen as sort of tweener guys for those type of teams, whether you take a risk on them or not. So because of that, usually they don't have as big a market. They end up falling down the draft a bit more. So maybe the Jets could take advantage of that in the third round and pick up somebody that could be a good starter for us moving forward in that role in the 4-3.
Yeah, exactly. Like, going back to the free agents, Rich, the Jets picked up, for me, I'd call them camp bodies. Like, you've got Delshon Phillips, 1-year deal linebacker. I think he was on draft. He ended up with the Bills, and he ended up with the Atlanta Falcons. Never heard of the chap. Dan Feeney was a third-round pick, and he was with the Chargers there for a few years and absolutely nearly got the quarterback killed. playing between guard and centre. I remember seeing him play against the Jets, and the Jets absolutely mauled him. So for me, he's either a backup or else he's just a camp body that's going to be cut. Let me see. We had Keelan Cole from the Jags, 1 year deal. I think it was 5.5 million. The guy seems to suit. He's tall, skinny, grey hands, bit of speed. Seems to suit the slot position more than the outside position because most of his receptions, most of his yardage came from the slot than outside. So I like that move. I'd never heard of the chap until they picked him up and I went and I did a bit of digging on him. Jared Davis, never heard of him and did a bit of studying on him. Seemingly on his first and second year, the arrow was in an upward trajectory and things were going very well stat-wise for him, and he was big time blitzer. Patricia came in, took over the job, changed the defense. The arrow turned around and went downwards when it came to Jared Davis, and I don't know if it was because of Matt Patricia's defense, Matt Patricia, but it didn't seem to work. Now, looking at Jared Davis and the way he plays and the system he plays well in is the very same system as Sellis. So maybe that's why they've took him on the cheap. It fills a position and fills a need because when it comes to Mosley, everything's up in the air. A huge question mark. Let's look at another big name I really liked was Rankins from the Saints. Big time defensive tackle. Came out of Louisville. I was a massive fan of this lad coming out, and when he came into the NFL, he made a big splash. But then he had the injury with the Achilles, and it set him back. So the Jets are seemingly most of their guys are first-round picks, and then the lesser guys are guys you've never heard of, like Tyler Croft, the tight end you mentioned. You wanted a big tight end. This guy's a third-round pick of Rutgers, blocking tight end. Jets have a need for a blocking tight end to look after the quarterback, help with the run game. Apart from that, it's just okay. I like it. I like the Tevin Coleman pick. You liked him a few years ago when he was leaving Atlanta to go to the 49ers. Remember that? He fills the need at running back. Fills the need at the locker room as well with experience in that running back group, because the running back group doesn't really jump out to you, does it, Rich?
No, well, I don't think really that San Francisco's jumped out either. Like, if you know what I mean, like it's
Not
been
really,
well
no.
publicized that the guy they sort of are letting pound the rock for the last while had been through 4 or 5 NFL teams before he got the starting gig there. So having like sort of unfashionable sounding running backs at the position isn't going to be really like a surprise. Again, the draft is another place where you could look at running back. And to be fair, like the running back market in free agency before we signed Tevin Coleman as well, like it was a pretty good market. Like I like that quite a lot of guys on that you could come in and maybe if you got them for in around the $4 to $5 million range, could like hold up for a season for you, and run the ball well. Again, Coleman, yeah, I liked it from he was in Indiana. Like he, at the time, was basically Indiana's entire offense when he was in college. And then, of course, the fact that he's also from Tinley Park, I always had more of an eye on him when he did enter the NFL. So, yeah, I do like the signing. Again, I would disagree slightly with you on, like, yeah, I do get we needed a block and tight end and stuff like that, but we needed one who could catch the ball too, and that's still missing. So
maybe to go into the draft and pick up one.
Yeah, no, I get that, but like what you were saying about experience in the locker room and things like that, like if you're the guy, as I said, like I was just looking at somebody like Rudolph because he was older, but he's the type of guy what you're going to get. he's going to be that sort of reliable safety blanket. He can do good things in the run game and blocking scenarios. He knows how to chip a guy. He knows how to find himself open in space. He's pretty good down the seam. Like, having a guy like that with options. And I think, as well as that, tight end and full back and running back, those are three positions you can really sort of fill usually cheaply in free agency, as in you'll find a lot of talent for your money in free agency in those positions. Now, yeah, tight end maybe less so, but running back for sure, you can always find, I feel, a lot of talent for your money in free agency. When the two guys went to New England, obviously the tight end market sort of dried up a little bit. And like last year as well, I thought we missed out on that guy Hooper. Now, again, he went to the Cleveland Browns. He might never have come here. Maybe Douglas did go and look at him. But I think for 2 years in a row to sort of feel like, that was still just relying on two guys who haven't really shown enough to be warranting getting the automatic starting job, just seems a bit of if you think back actually a couple of years ago, Ian, when the Jets brought in a guy like Austin Seferian-Jenkins, a guy kind of like that, he's never going to blow the top off at him, but you probably know that he's going to get between 30 and 50 catches a year. You know what he can do in the run game in terms of chipping guys or holding up what he can and can't do. Somebody like that, I think, was what was needed. Not even a flash guy, but somebody who could come in and maybe bring those sort of young guys on in sort of every aspect, And maybe that's probably the only real major disappointment, other than the interior of the line, that we didn't sort of try and upgrade that position more than what we did.
Yeah, the interior offensive line kind of flew off the board fast. Maybe he's got one eye on the draft when it comes to the interior, because the draft is actually loaded with solid interior guards, and there's a couple of decent centers as well. I had a question sent in from Mike from down in Cork, and he wants to know: do we think the Jets take a center at pick 23, or the first pick to have in second round for Creed Humphreys? For me, if they were going to go after Creed Humphreys, they'd have to go in the first round, because he's not going to last the second round.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you there. I think we would probably look at for the interior in terms of the top two guys there. I would probably just rate Wyatt Davis a little bit ahead. I know that's probably not fashionable, but just in terms of what I feel he could bring in terms of just that mean and nasty streak, he's a bit more of a mauler type of guy for me. So I'd probably opt for him, maybe at 23. But yeah, I think both guys could be potentially gone by our second round pick. Yeah. So I think that would be, if I was doing the draft, I would probably look at quarterback second overall. I would look at the three, maybe interior of the O-line, whether that be a center or a guard. I'd also look at cornerback, because we haven't really done that in there. There's a few nice options potentially there at 23 too, but I think maybe there's more options at 34 at cornerback for the Jets. So I would look at maybe 23 maybe needs to be. There is a sort of a few guys further down, there's a nice guy from Kentucky. Then the center from Ohio is not too bad of a prospect.
Myers.
Yeah, and then there's another guy, a guard from Georgia, that I would be pretty okay with in round 3 or 4 in terms of he would be a lot better than, let's just say, your Brian Winters type of 3rd or 4th round guard, as in he can do one thing well and probably needs to be trained up on another. But if you can get him put in that position where he's going to succeed a lot more year one, as in, I think he'd be pretty good in the run game. So if that's the way we were going to go in a more run heavy offense, I'd be okay with that. He actually remind me more of a sort of a Matt Slauson type of guy, which doesn't sound a lot, but when you're going down that sort of level and you can get him to pencil in as a pretty decent starter, which what Slauson was when he was with the Jets. So that's what I would probably envisage there. As in, if you want the top guy, you're probably going to take him at 23. But there is a few options further down in the draft for the interior, so I wouldn't be panicking either.
No, but the way Joe Douglas talks, I could actually see him taking 3 inside offensive guys throughout that whole draft. Like, I could see him taking a guy at 23. I could see him taking a guy in the second round, a guy maybe in the 5th round, or the 2nd round, 3rd round, 5th round. I just have a feeling he's going to bulk up this offensive line big time, especially if there's a young quarterback coming in, rookie, at pick number 2, or even if Sam Darnold is still around, he's going to bulk up the offensive line, and he made an attempt last year.
Yeah, and then you also have the option, like, we're automatically thinking that because he has the 2nd overall pick, and I know now today there's been a couple of mad crazy moves and trades where Miami traded down with
let's talk about that.
From the 3rd overall pick down to number 12. Who was it they traded with? San Francisco?
The San Francisco came up to 3 and Miami went back to 12, and then a few minutes later the Eagles traded with Miami, so Miami came back up to 6. Eagles went back to 12, but the other thing was the Eagles were actually trying to trade with Miami for the 3rd round pick, for the 3rd pick, but they didn't have enough ammunition to come up to the 3rd pick.
Yeah, it's a bit like
very strange.
It throws a little cat amongst the pigeons, I guess, in terms of like San Francisco kind of done like a Mike McCagnon there, as in trading up into the blind, thinking, oh, we don't really care which one of the quarterbacks we get. We're going to get either Fields or we're going to get Wilson, or they're probably not going to get Lawrence. Like, let's be fair. If he falls out at number 1, he ain't going to get past the Jets. Like,
no.
But the Jets do have options there. Like, Zach Wilson's pro day was today, and by all accounts, he was looking really, really good at it. So, whether the Jets even go that way or stay with Darnold, you still sort of want the likes of Wilson and Fields to have nice pro days, because if you're not going quarterback with the 2nd overall pick, that means that the more them quarterbacks become coveted by other teams, the more you can get for that 2nd overall pick. So, like, just before coming on air, I went on to one of those draft simulators, and I did just that, like, traded out of the 2nd overall pick. I traded down with Denver to number 9, and ended up with LSU wide receiver Chase. And I ended up at the end of the 4th round, I got the Alabama quarterback. You know, like, so there are kind of options there where you can still, like, trade down out of the 2nd overall pick and still potentially pick up a quarterback. In a way, kind of, maybe that's what Miami, like, you know, it seems strange for Miami to be trading up into the blind to the 6th overall pick, because who's to know what players there? Like, you know, unless they've got 6 players, or if they think that 3 players are going to be gone at quarterback, so they have a top 4 that they're willing to trade up for, whether it be wide receiver like Chase or Devin Smith or somebody like that. But yeah, I think the trade up from Miami to 6 seems probably the strangest one, just at the moment. You know?
Yeah, because for me, I looked at the trade when they trade back to 12. It's like, oh, Miami, it sounds like they believe in Tua. Next 5 minutes later, they traded up to number 6. I was like, well, that's got out the window. But then you look at then you look at the media, and it was like through the whole free agency, the Jets beat the media, the national media, and even the Jets fans. They're like keyboard warriors, and they're all trying to guess who the Jets were going to get. And I have this link, and I have that link, and hot takes about who the Jets were going to take, and who they were going after, and who they were going to sign, and nothing was coming right for them at all. So Jets brass go to BYU for the pro day, for the quarterback, and LaFleur, Sala, and Joe Douglas made their appearance. Seemingly, it's the only pro day the 3 of them went together to watch a quarterback. So, like, that might mean nothing. That might mean could be smoke. we don't know. And the other thing is, the media now are stating that the Jets the number 2 overall pick. It's written in the stars. It's going to be Wilson. And then you've got while this was all going on, you had the trades going on. And I was just looking at it and seeing the trades and who needs a quarterback in the top 10. The Jets' number 2 overall pick, the value in that is going sky high because of these trades. And you're going to have teams like Carolina, the Broncos, Atlanta. These teams are going to be very, very antsy when it comes to the draft for that number 2 overall pick. So if the Jets are happy to stick with Sam, and if they want to trade back, they're going to get an absolute lump sum for that number 2 pick because of today.
Yeah, but they don't even have to potentially stick with Sam Darnold to get like that. Because like they could potentially trade down from 2 maybe to 7, and they could still maybe get like the Bama quarterback or a different you know what I mean? They could potentially like get the likes of Trask at 23, and you know, like there are a few other options there for the Jets to kind of like to sort of back Darnold a bit, but still have like a plan B sort of waiting in the wings just in case, like, you know. So I don't think we're fully set on quarterback at 2. I agree, because I am a little bit worried. Like, I mean, if I was the guys there now, like coming in, like, how could you, after witnessing what Sam Darnold has played like throughout the first few years, like, yeah, it would be an attractive proposition to say I can fix the guy. A lot of people get fired trying to fix guys, you know, because when they can't fix them or they don't fix them, and something that was plainly obvious to every fan out there that is like, well, look, you had the evidence of the past 3 to 4 years to go on. If you needed a year of walking up with them to know what we knew 12 months previously, you're probably not the guy for the job. You know, that's as blunt as I can kind of put it. Like, if he doesn't see what the fans, what are obvious to fans over the last couple of years, and I've nothing against Sam Darnold, but the guy, like, his career was over as soon as he mentioned on that podium that he saw ghosts. He basically gave his tell to every defensive coordinator in the league. Like, I mean, if you were a defensive coordinator and you heard that from a quarterback, would you not be rubbing your hands thinking, that's it, brilliant, disguise pressure, bring it everywhere, make him uncomfortable, the guy's not going to be able to do that against us. It's the plan to succeed against Darnold, and teams have done it more or less ever since. Now he has recovered in little stages here and there, but like what I have noticed as well is he hasn't really gotten technically better either, like in terms of like throwing motions, footwork, things that should have been getting better really off the field, and you should have been seeing it kind of translating. And I get that you'll probably say, well, he never really had time from the O-line, and I agree with that too. Like, he definitely wasn't put in a position to succeed. But like, even the things you could work on off the field in terms of those like mechanics and stuff like that, some little things did get better, I will say that, but some things just stayed the exact same. And
yeah, but the other thing about that, Rich, is he never had a quarterbacks coach when he was with the Jets. And anytime he needed support from his head coach was sitting over on the bench playing freaking hangman on a piece of paper. So he's no support.
I kind of disagree with that, because, like, yeah, you're saying that about a year 3 guy. Do you know what I mean?
Year 2 and 3.
That wasn't, yeah, but that wasn't really the experience in year 2 or 3. Like, he came into this league as a young guy. He had a really experienced vet to sort of lean on as a rookie in Josh McCown. Like, you know, people were celebrating how good that deal was to have him there with Darnold coming in, and how much of help he did really help Darnold in that 7-win season and things like that. So, yeah, like, I'm not going to, like, lash any coach for taking any type of training wheels off in year 3. And, like, and to be fair, as an athlete, if I felt like that, I'd be, like, calling that coach out. Or I'd be finding like somebody that I could rely on, like myself individually, and say, right, well, if I'm not getting here, I'm going to bring somebody in myself for my own personal performance to ensure that I get where I need to be, and you have to put some responsibility on the player because it's his job to get better, like off seasons and things like that as well. And yeah, I'm not saying he hasn't put in the work, but the work hasn't really worked in terms of translating into a better quarterback so far in his career. Like, he's still as young, and I understand the temptation is there to try and fix a guy, but even if you do fix a guy, to what level are you going to fix him, and at what cost in terms of cap are you going to need to pay him to keep him with you on that sort of, like, the last thing you want to be doing is paying a really average young quarterback a lot of money, when they weren't good enough to win, when they were in sort of in the low echelons of pay, when you had more to spend on the rest of your roster. It's going to be a lot harder to win with an average guy, even if he turns out that way, if he's earning $25-30 million a year, when he comes up to compete against teams who are on maybe $7 or $8 million a year rookie quarterback.
And who, in your mind, is an average quarterback in the NFL?
Average from, like, somebody like, I suppose, Carr would be an average quarterback. Derek Carr, he strikes me as average.
Okay.
I suppose Cowboys quarterback for me would strike me.
Prescott.
Prescott would be an average quarterback. He's paid and he's promoted like a superstar, but as the quarterback, to me, he's average. I could probably pick 10 guys that are, for me, head and shoulders above him. So, average for me is like 16, 32. So, yeah, he's probably maybe in the 12 to 16 range. For Darnold, like, his 32, even to reach the top 20 would be an achievement there, Okay. I just don't see it really happening, not at this stage of his career. And I think, in a way, how would you say, he's broken beyond repair. He had, like, the potential to have come in. Like, I think if he was planted into a better scenario, like, a lot of people will say, oh, well, Darnold was the wrong decision. We should have picked this guy or we should have picked that guy. But trust me when I tell you, Allen wouldn't have come into that scenario with Darnold and been the Allen we see with the Bills.
The Jets fans would have ran him out in year one.
Exactly. Like, you look at, like, they had a scenario going there in Buffalo where they had a really, really good defense built. I think they were number 1 or 2 in the NFL the year before they actually drafted Allen. That was something for them to build on. Nearly kind of like the Jets scenario with Sanchez. Like, Sanchez come into a perfect scenario there. Like, in terms of, if you want to be a quarterback that's coming in as a rookie, you want to play on a team like the 09 Jets that was literally stacked with talent, that, like, ready to win. You know what I mean? That's when you don't have a quarterback, that's the kind of job you should be doing as a GM, is trying to work your way to get a team like that. That when you do find the quarterback, boom, you've got like maybe 3 to 4 years of talent, like, like $7 to $8 million a year quarterback, where you can afford to keep paying them other guys to keep that team together for the duration of the sort of rookie contract of a quarterback. With Darnold at $25 million, like, you're kind of losing maybe like a top cornerback there off the roster, or a top passer,
Rich, if to keep him on this year and next year, do you have the 5th-year option? That's $18 million. 5th-year option. And then the tag, all that kind of stuff.
I like my sort of ideal scenario for this year. Like, we talk about obviously the demands that the fans have. We probably have slightly less demands in terms of, we're not the short term, next season has to be this. Like, I can understand that, like, I suppose maybe more so the long term aspect of the guys that are there have a 5-year deal. So the goal is for them really is at the end of 5 years, they need to be like having a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl. That's the way I look at it. And it's probably a little bit wrong to expect that to happen after year one. I'm okay with sort of this year being one where we improve the roster, have a few little growing pains here and there. So for that reason, I would be okay with staying and like playing Darnold this year through his 4th year, and drafting a rookie at 2 and letting him sit till we have more talent next year, to then put him in after having a year to grow on the bench Let Darnold sort of take all the bumps and bruises, the things that's would ordinarily knock a rookie's confidence. As the team develops around Darnold, then boom, he goes to free agency. You have a guy year 2 ready to start his first game of his career, or even like you could potentially put the rookie in week 13, 14, 15, you know what I mean, at the end of this season to sort of blood him. I would also like look at doing that potentially. But this year for me, it would be more like, let's fix the O-line, let's get a couple of weapons, let's get the defense looking better, and let's prepare this team for this quarterback who we have waiting in the wings that's after going to be developed behind closed doors without any sort of the same issues that we have with every single rookie that we draft. And that is just put them in day one, regardless of whether the team's ready or he's ready. The team ain't ready for a rookie. Like, the team ain't much better than the one that Darnold found himself and dropped into. So taking a guy second overall at quarterback may not necessarily be the ideal fix right now. You know, we still, for me, need to add a bit more talent and a couple of extra spots, like cornerback in particular. You know, the whole sort of defense in a way is up in the air where they'll actually rank. Like, do we have a really, really good top 5, top 10 defense? Have we an average one? You know, like, we don't really sort of know where we need to improve after this year either. So I think this year is the type of year where we're going to look to try and improve everywhere, or we should look to improve everywhere, whether that be positionally, record-wise, offense, defense, special teams, all of it. And I think we come out at the end of this year, like, regardless of what our record is, but if we feel we've a bit more confidence in, like, yeah, I'm liking how the interior of the O-line is playing now at the end of next season, and you're thinking, right, a rookie could go in there now, or a guy playing his first game could go in there and succeed. Like, he has that sort of ability now that the O-line can give him maybe 3.5, 4 seconds comfortably in a pocket. We could have a run game that's functioning. One of those young guys at running back could come in and, you know, make a name for himself. And, you know, the run game itself, we could be seeing different plays, a more physical game by the Jets. So there's a lot of things that can happen in that transition. And I would be okay with Darnold running that transition for the bigger picture of thinking, well, Darnold is probably never going to be good enough regardless. Let's get this guy in. You've got 4 years then of him on a rookie deal to continue to build around him for hopefully the crescendo at the end of maybe year 4 or year 5, where you have 1 or 2 years where you really go for the main prize, which is the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Rich, I know where you're coming from, but I just don't think they hang on to Darnold if they draft a quarterback at 2. I just think they trade him out for whatever they can get.
The worst to get, like, Ian, if he goes into free agency, is probably a conditional 3rd round pick. So if they're not getting that and more than that, they may as well hang on to him, because at the very worst, he's a pretty decent backup quarterback, somebody that could come in and like complete a few passes and win a few games, because, you know, like, at the price, it's not like he's costing a huge amount. If we did have another guy on a rookie deal, we'd be still under the 20 million mark for both guys, you know, comfortably under, for having a good backup and a rookie quarterback. So, yeah, I get why people would be against it and stuff like that. But for me, that's, I would see, giving the Jets the most benefit. I'm not really interested in how Darnold's career progresses after we're done with him. I'd be more interested in making sure that the sort of environment that any new quarterback does sort of come into is one a lot more better than what Darnold found himself in. And yeah, while at the minute it's slightly a little bit better, it's not hugely. You know, there's still a lot of unknowns there. We expect it to be quite a bit better, but expectations, like, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility for a defensive-minded coach to sort of like hone in on getting his defense at this year at the expense of just like letting the sort of offense come together gradually, but like with a lot of growing pains. So if you were putting the rookie into that sort of scenario, I'd rather keep Darnold for the year to let him get all the knocks and bruises and things like that. Or, like, you know, a rookie quarterback as well, it's strange. Like, a lot of things can happen very negatively that's going to impact the career year 1, in terms of, like, I get that you can get a lot of positives too, as in, right, he's the guy or stuff like that. But if he's the guy, he's probably going to show it after a year sitting on the bench too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to have an adverse effect to that. But I think if you sort of get the team around a young guy, like sort of more in tune with each other, and you're slotting him into something that's already working, he's a better chance of succeeding. We just kind of don't know how our team is working at the moment. So for that reason, I would be probably more comfortable with continuing with Darnold, sort of throwing away this season for what it is, and that's like a wait and see what do we really need after this year to start really like pushing it to win a division, to get to a Super Bowl, to win one, you know?
Okay. And what's your thoughts on the quarterbacks outside of Lawrence? Who's your top five?
In a way, Ian, I don't really have like the top five guys are kind of the top five guys, if you know what I mean. In terms of order and stuff like that, I kind of sort of resign myself to the fact in a way that, like, regardless of who I prefer and stuff like that, it's kind of irrelevant now at this stage. It's like I'm more sort of from this stage looking, are the Jets prepared to have one? Do you know, that type of way? Because regardless of what I think, you could get the best quarterback. You could get Andrew Luck getting drafted into Sam Darnold's scenario, and his career could be just as over as Sam Darnold's. Do you know what I mean? I think we sort of overemphasize the prospect we want, as in this guy's going to be a great fit. The reality is, a lot of guys are good fits in good scenarios, regardless of what their actual talent level is or where they're drafted. You know, like, there's a lot of guys get drafted lower down the sort of pecking order, shall we say, that go to better teams who are more prepared for them. And guess what? They excel. Why? Because the team was ready for them. And you see a lot of teams still up the top of the draft, like us, who's still waiting and chasing that quarterback. Why? Because we keep taking them when we don't have a team to actually nurture them and finally, you know, develop one into a franchise guy. So that's kind of my sort of little take on it, Ian, if you know.
Just like Tom Brady.
Yeah, like, you know, like, I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't get the guy who I think is better. Like, for me, like, the top guy there is Lawrence. So if you want any quarterback in terms of being a professional guy who you're going to sort of get behind, who's got the skills and the tools to, like, develop even probably further in the NFL in terms of a leadership role, I mean, like, he strikes me as that sort of franchise sort of face guy, you know, like, he's out there leading it in a couple of years. Like, that's the kind of guy he strikes me as. So I would probably have less worry about, like, him translating what he's done in college to the NFL. A few of the other guys, like Fields, I suppose, again, like, if we're getting technical, he's more your sort of all-round guy. Now, like, I have a bit of a theory, like, I think a quarterback is probably, in the modern NFL, the way the salary cap is and how little rookies get paid, for me, the model I would, like, build my franchise around in the future is that I have a quarterback every 5 years that's a rookie. As soon as that rookie goes to the end of his rookie contract and needs to be paid, you know, Patrick Mahomes type money, even if he's really good, I let him go and I give somebody else the headache of paying that amount of money, and I'm going to pick up 2 or 3 additional top players to add to another rookie and keep building. Like, that's kind of my thinking now, like, in terms of, like,
that's a big take.
Well, I done a bit of research while we were off, Ian. I checked out, like, what type of teams made the Super Bowl over the last decade, what they built their team around, what, like, how many top 10 quarterbacks made the Super Bowl, like in comparison to rookies. And more rookie quarterbacks get to the Super Bowl the last decade than top 10 quarterbacks. Like, Tom Brady this year was the first top 10 quarterback to reach the Super Bowl in 4 years. Like, top 10 paid now that year. So, like, basically, if you go into overthecap.com, look at the top 10 paid quarterback next year and literally discount every one of them teams from the Super Bowl. That's how bold my predictions are. If you're gambling, take them top 10 teams of them quarterbacks out of your equation completely. Because I'm deadly serious, right? As the salary cap grows, so, like, this year is probably going to be about 200 million. Now, in 2 years' time, this was the whole Watson talk. 42 million, right? How can a team as good as Watson is pay 42 million for that player, compete against the team that drafts the next Patrick Mahomes at 6 million, or the next Russell Wilson at 6 million, or like 36 million extra for that team to spend on talent is a lot to make up. Like Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees combined haven't made the Super Bowl for a decade. Two of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game in the same conference, and between both of them, they haven't reached the Super Bowl since the salary cap changed and the rookie pay scale changed. Like we were talking about the value of the picks earlier on. The value of the picks for me since that rookie pay scale changed in about 2011 or 2012, the picks are worth more now because, like, back in 2011, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL was Mark Sanchez, 18 point something million, right? He was on a rookie deal. Back then, rookie deals were like, if you got a good guy, you were saved. But like he was going in, the first overall pick was nearly automatically the highest paid player in the NFL. That changed hugely. But the values of the pick on all those like trade charts didn't change. But like instead of you having to do a 7-year deal now for maybe 120 million or 160 million for your first overall pick, you're getting the first overall pick now for a 5-year deal for maybe about 54 to 60 million. You know, it's not like the big sort of ball and chain around a team's ankles, because back then, if you did draft a dud, you were screwed with them until you could afford to cut them. But like, because the contracts were so big, you were probably screwed for 4 or 5 years. Now you can kind of cut a guy after 2 or 3, not really be down much, but have a lot more money to spend on the rest of your roster. So, you know, that would be like my formula moving forward to build an NFL franchise, would be to keep rinse and repeat, keep the team as strong as possible, regardless of the quarterback, and try and, like, the most important thing for me at quarterback is not who it is, it's what you pay them. You know, if you can get value for money at quarterback, find a rookie that's on a rookie deal. Like, I'll put a half-decent rookie with a team built around him against any team that plays Deshaun Watson and $42 million, you know, or Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback when he's getting paid $6 million. When you add another 40 on and take 40 million quid's worth of talent off the Chiefs, is he the same guy? He is, but he's not. You know what I mean? There's a big difference. That, like, you can add a lot of talent with Patrick Mahomes there when he's on 6 million. You take a lot away when he's getting 46 million, you know?
All right, I think that brings it this show to a close. But the next time we come back, we'll do a 6-round mock draft, because Jets don't have a 7th-round pick. We'll do, let's see, our 3 under the radar players throughout the draft. What do you think, Rich?
Oh, well, one guy, if you want me to name any sort of under the radar players,
In the next show. Okay, go on.
Okay, right.
One player.
Oh, no, I was going to, for one player for me would be, and he's not really usually under the radar, but I think he's a great fit for us, is Clemson wide receiver, Amari Rodgers. He's done a bit of sort of where he's like potentially could be playing running back at the next level. He's tried out with that. But in terms of like a sort of a Deebo Samuel type player that could fit well into the offense, he'd be a guy that you could potentially get in around maybe 3, 4, or 5 and fit in really nicely what I think we could potentially be trying to do. Like, I'm basing like what I feel our offense is going to be like based on watching San Francisco over the last couple of years. And this guy, he's like small, he's 5'9", but like he's 210 pounds, really fast. He can shift, you know, he's a bit of a sort of that type of Jarvis Landry type of like make you miss type of guy as well. And like he's solid enough, you know, like I like him as a potential like sort of mid to sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th round potential pickup there that could really fit in well on the offense. Now, again, maybe because we got Cole, because he's another guy I did like when you were talking about him earlier on, who we did sign. And just, I suppose, the only other thing, just getting back to free agency, I meant to say as well, the only thing I'm probably a little bit still surprised with is that Joe Douglas is continuing to give a lot of these what you would perceive to be like prove-it deals.
1-year deals.
But what he's not, yeah, but what he's not doing is he's not really pinning his sort of colours to any guy's mask by saying, no, I'm 100% confident that I'm paying this guy and this guy's going to come in and do a job for us. He hasn't really made a statement signing like that. He seems to be like still been very cautious, as in like we'll try and just like throw a lot of stuff around and see what sticks for us, rather than being like confidently putting a piece into the puzzle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you. He done that kind of last year as well.
Yeah.
I'll give you a player now, Rich, and I think he's a late third, early fourth round pick. And this is a guy I really like. He's a senior player that played in the senior bowl and popped out with me the Senior Bowl. Even when I'm looking at him on tape, David Moore, offensive guard, Grambling State University. He's an absolute animal. Just really impressed with his attitude. Really impressed with his game style, his play style. I think he'd be an absolute beast in the offensive line.
Very good. Yeah, I'll have to watch a little bit more. He did sort of come on my radar at the Senior Bowl because of where he played, and obviously the level of competition. He was probably more impressive because he wasn't perceived to be like, you know, able for it, shall we say. But he seemed to have fitted in nicely that time at the Senior Bowl, if I recall.
See, the other thing is he played against Alabama, and he made short stuff for them, their defensive line, whoever came up against them.
Yeah, Alabama's not a bad yardstick to be judging on either, are they?
Exactly. All right, so that'll bring this show to a close. It's long from me.
And Slán from me.